Hey there, I'm Maddie Gardner coming to you from the WBTV News Now desk. We are staying on top of breaking news out of Brooklyn, New York. We are following the story of a subway attack this morning. You're taking a look at some scene video here. We just heard from police and the mayor of New York City, so we have some new details here. At least 16 people hurt following a shooting and a smoke bomb attack at a Brooklyn subway station. This happened just before 9 o'clock this morning in the Sunset Park neighborhood. 16 people injured, 10 people shot. This is a developing situation. A lot more news is coming out, so we wanted to bring in our security analyst, Carl De La Guerra. Carl, thank you for hopping on here as this story continues to develop. So first and foremost, Carl, I know you've been following this news all day as well. What is your first impression of what happened in Brooklyn this morning?
Well, right now, as you said, it is a developing story, Maddie. There is no motive that's been established right now. We have more questions than we do answers at this point. But we do know it was a horrific event, appears to be a lone gunman, and definitely appears to be premeditated.
And we know that a manhunt is still underway for that suspect. We were hearing some new details in that press conference not just an hour ago, Carl, about who that gunman is or that suspect is at this point. They're saying that he is a 5'5" black man. He was wearing a green vest and a gray hoodie, and he was at one point a passenger on the subway before he took that smoke grenade out of his backpack, threw it into the car, and then began shooting people. Just a horrible event. Some graphic details there, Carl. So with this situation, what are police doing now in order to locate that suspect, and how is the federal government, the law enforcement on the federal level, involved with this case?
Well, this is definitely a multi-jurisdictional investigation. Everyone from the federal, state, and local level are all grouping their resources together to see what they can find out and how they can move forward with this investigation. You did mention, Maddie, the description of the individual, but I put caution to this. Investigators right now are looking more to identify the individual than they are the particular clothing. That apparel that he had on would lead someone to believe that he might have been part of a maintenance crew or something like this. Think of that as nothing more than a costume that he decided to put on for this particular event. So with every individual that witnessed this, you're going to have a slightly different variation of the story, but they do have a general idea of what they're going to be investigating.
Certainly new details coming out within the last hour, Carl. One of those is that the suspect deployed that smoke grenade and then began shooting people. Do you think that that was some kind of distraction? We know people are being treated for smoke inhalation as well as gunshots and even trample wounds as they tried to get off the subway. And goodness, that is hard to hear.
It is being reported as a smoke canister, so we can assume it would be one of those either civilian or military type smoke canisters. They have not confirmed yet what the substance was that was released from that. We're hoping it was just simply nothing more than theatrical or military smoke that was released out of it. But that was definitely part of this individual's plot. Many times smoke grenades or smoke devices like that can be used to mask a situation. It would definitely cause panic, though, without a doubt.
And obviously this happened at 8:45 this morning, rush hour, a busy subway station in Brooklyn. So we imagine that the train car was full of people, and we're seeing some scene video now just of how crowded the area was after we saw video of passengers getting off the subway train there as soon as it happened. Carl, what should we keep in mind? I know right now this is such a developing situation. We're still getting those new details, but you know, putting ourselves in an unfortunate situation like that, God forbid, what should we keep in mind when we're in a public situation and an attack does happen? Is there anything that we can be aware of?
Well, Maddie, keeping in mind that this individual, the shooter, did have a planned attack here, did have this thought out, apparently. Always knowing what your surroundings, being aware of your surroundings. You and I have talked about this many times. That situational awareness is absolutely vital. There are exits to the side, exits to the end of each of the subway cars. Being close to those exits in any type of a venue, public transportation, public venue, whatever it might be, is absolutely vital. Know your surroundings, know your situation. This individual, in the moments leading up to the attack, would have had to be giving some sort of signs that something was not right. There would have been precursors in his actions to indicate that there was an impending threat.
And the police chief and the mayor said that this was not an act of terrorism. Why do you think that they're not labeling it as that at this point, Carl? And do you think that label is coming later?
Well, the commissioner, the police commissioner, very pointedly said she is not ruling anything out at this point, and it is too early to make that determination. Once a motive is discovered, then there'll be more information on to exactly what type of attack this is. But at this point, leadership in New York does appear to be labeling this as an active shooter situation. But keep in mind, tensions are going to be extremely high in the area. I know area schools are still in lockdown because this subject is still at large.
Right, and of course we are showing this video from the scene once again, and you can see, of course, this happened underground because it was on the subway, but just this scene above ground in Brooklyn, very, very active right now. And you mentioned the schools and the businesses in the surrounding area because the suspect has not been apprehended at this time.
Part of what you're seeing here, Maddie, is the resilience of the people of New York City. And one of the things that's very encouraging in this, if you can find any good in a horrific situation like this, is notice in the videos that we've seen the number of people that are staying behind to assist the injured. No one is being abandoned here. And that is how a community needs to come together in the moments after an attack.
And what will you be watching, Carl, as a security analyst for the rest of the day as these events unfold?
The manhunt is going to be very, very important. The faster this subject gets captured by law enforcement, the safer that community is going to be. And as quickly as they can capture that individual to find out what the motive is. Were there other individuals involved? Was this an organized attack by a group? Was this a so-called lone wolf? All these questions need to be answered, but they need to solidify the importance of the fact that there is no further threat to New York, and that we do not know at this time.
I listened to an interview with a witness there. He was eating at a diner nearby, Carl, and he said that a lot of times in that area, things will happen on the subway and people will come out and they might be running because of a fire or a crowd or a fight or something like this. But this morning, he said when he saw the people coming above ground from the subway station that they were all looking around because they were still trying to figure out what had happened. And of course, they didn't know if the shooter, if the attacker was still near them.
Attacks like this, Maddie, are absolute chaos. This is not the first attack we've seen on a subway internationally, but it is absolute chaos. You have to configure it's a confined space, not just the subway car, but the subway platform itself. Things can get very, very confusing. Even if you are right next to the events unfolding, things can be very, very difficult to understand. That fog of war kicks in. Things can be very convoluted.
And you mentioned just the suddenness of all of this. So, of course, that initial panic was there. But you also said that there could be signs that we can look out for in the future for someone who might have bad intentions.
Get your head out of your cell phone. Bring your head up. So many of us have the comfort of listening to music or watching or someone texting while we're on a commute on public transportation. Bring your head up from that. Be aware of your surroundings. Look around. That saying that has become cliche, but it absolutely isn't. See something, say something is so important. What looks out of the ordinary? If you ride that subway every day, you're going to know what looks ordinary and what doesn't. Those are the type of things we need to be aware of. What's going on in our environment is so important to recognize.
Carl De La Guerra, security analyst. Carl, anything else that we need to touch on here?
We're just praying currently for the safety of those individuals that were injured and the safety of all New Yorkers until the perpetrator of this crime is captured.
Absolutely. Again, this is a developing issue right now, a story out of Brooklyn, New York, attack on the subway there, 16 people injured, 10 people shot, 5 of those shot in critical but stable condition. As we said many times, this is developing. Carl will actually be joining Jamie Bull on Your Side tonight. You can catch him with the very latest information on this horrible attack. Carl, thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, for those of you who are sticking with us here on WBTV News Now, we are going to switch you over to a look outside at the Charlotte skyline through our tower camera here. We will be back live with the latest on this developing story and much more news.